welcome back to Every Marvel Movie Reviewed. Today I'm going to give you a little brief history before we start our movie. In between this film and the last film, there's a pretty big year gap, big as we're going to see, around 20 years at least. At most, maybe, who knows, who cares. Anyway, Marvel Comics definitely went for a change. One, they changed their name from Atlas to Timely, and either vice versa, who cares about Atlas or Timely, because they're known as Marvel. Because, well, the first comic they ever produced was Marvel Comics, #1 in 1939. During the Golden Age, they produced some classic superhero comics, but not really that popular compared to their competitors, other than Captain America, of course, we already covered in the first film serial. In the 1960s, in 1961, they introduced the Fantastic Four after a brief, around a 10-year hiatus of not producing any superhero comics. And they were brand new, different, and very unique. These were under the geist of Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, Steve Ditko, and a bunch of others. They would introduce a bunch of characters that pretty much everyone knows from Marvel. Pretty much every character in the Captain America was introduced in the Silver Age. Fantastic Four, X-Men, Hulk, Spider-Man, Iron Man, and, so on and so forth. So, they did get their own animated TV shows in the 60s. However, it won't be to the 1970s when they actually made live-action films, which were all pretty much TV films, starting with their most popular character, Spider-Man. Spider-Man from 1977 was one of many TV films released in the late 70s and early 80s under a block, which they did because they had a deal. That's the best I'm going to you can get from me. So there's not a whole lot of scenes of him using his powers. And when they do see it, it's pretty janky. One of the things about Spider-Man is that due to his unique powers, he's actually a pretty hard character to adapt into live action without, well, CGI technology, that is. Though, to be fair, there are some unique creative shots. Some of them look better than others, but it's pretty clear that, they did not have their equipment, especially for a TV studio, to be producing stories based off a guy who primarily climbs up skyscrapers and swings around them. Even fan films have had problems with this. What's even worse are the fight scenes, which there actually isn't too many of, which is incredibly slow and bad-paced, where Spider-Man just slowly turns around on top of the ceiling and the bad guys watch as they slowly fight each other, and then speed up the footage later to make it look like it's a more intense fight. Spider-Man's costume is mostly faithful to its comic book counterpart, though it does look pretty cheap. The costume looks like something you would probably get out of a Halloween store, which is fine. I mean, that's what Spider-Man's costume really looks like. It does look a little cheap around the edges, and the eyes are very strange looking. It looks like they just cut around a piece of glass and then try to make the black markings to look more like the comic book counterpart. It doesn't look too good, but there isn't a whole lot of close-ups, at least in this film of it, so it's fine for the most part, but up close it does not look very good. Really, this gives you most of the things you want to see with Spider-Man's powers, even though there's only one web-swinging scene, and it's just, well, yeah, it looks cool for the one scene it is, but that's about it. Sure, they did a good job of that one web-swinging scene, but that's all you're going to get from this movie. So yeah, let's talk about the rest of the film. Compared to the previous film I saw, this one's a lot more faithful to the comics, but not too much. Especially compared to the future TV movies, which will have a lot of deviations. This one does star Peter Parker, who wants to work for the Daily Bugle, selling photos of J. Jonah Jameson, and that's pretty accurate. And he's played here by Nicholas Hammond, who actually does a pretty good job. He's not the best in the world, but for the first, actually not even the first live action, it's the first movie, kind of, TV movie, second, third, who cares. He does a good job. He's dorky, but he has a little charisma, kind of the character you expect Peter Parker to be, and he definitely feels like that 70s version of the character. This is also a part origin story for him, but it's actually not really covered that well. At the beginning I thought, we're just going to skip over it because it showcases him in college selling photos of Jameson. But no, it later showed during a college, I guess, not really class, they're just doing experiments and the spider randomly gets infected by radioactivity, I guess. And then he gets bit by the spider, like all the other comic book adaptations and movies, you know that. The character also lives with his Aunt May, like in the comics, which is fine. However, the character barely appears in the film, nor does her house. Also, the fact that Uncle Ben is dead, I guess, in this universe, since we don't see him. But Spider-Man never caused his Uncle Ben's death, because, like I said, his origin was caused by that, and here he's already dead, so, oh well. And other than that, the only two other comic book characters are J. Jonah Jameson and Robbie Robertson, who looks a lot younger in this film. These characters are mostly accurate, but not entirely. Yeah, they're alright. Peter spends most of his time here just chit-chatting and going for the shit with them, I guess. Just like talking about shit, more so than anything. Not even really getting photos for that matter. and then slowly discovering how to climb buildings, because that seems to be the most of his powers in this film, is that he can climb buildings. Maybe he's slightly stronger, but he seems like he's really good at climbing buildings, which is, that's fine, it's neat. It helps him save people, which is always good to see. Yeah, Spider-Man doesn't really have much of a motivation, unlike the comics, for why he wants to save people. He just automatically does it. Like, he's just a good guy, I guess. Well, that's fine. I mean, I prefer more motivation, but, Now, there is a big problem with this film, is that the villain of the film is pretty lame, and it makes the film kind of eh. It starts off as kind of interesting seeing this alternate take on this character, but then you kind of get bored because there's not a whole lot going on in it. It's once again just another mind control villain who's not from the comics, and I guess he has, like, martial art guys sometimes, and yeah, he tries to mind control a guy. It's not interesting at all. In fact, I think I blacked out during these scenes. There's something about cult mentality in there, but it's so underdeveloped that just, who cares? This film is pretty slow paced, doesn't actually have a lot going for it, so it doesn't really matter that much. Though, much like the comics, Peter uses his scientific knowledge in order to beat the villain, which I always like to see. So at least they got that main aspect of his character right. So he uses his own mind control thing against the guy and tells him to turn himself in. I like aspects of this, but overall the pacing and execution is pretty weak. The budget's pretty bad, so that's probably why it doesn't have much going on for it. There's also this angry police chief guy who just hates Spider-Man, but then in the end he's like, I like Spider-Man. Like, what? Is this guy supposed to be Jameson, too? I don't know who this cop character is supposed to be, because it's not any character from the comics. He's not Captain Stacy, that's for sure. Speaking of which, none of Peter Parker's love interests are in the movie. There's no Betty Brant, Liz Allen, Mary Jane, or Gwen Stacy. There's one girl who's like the daughter of one of the mind-controlled people who committed a crime, but I don't even know if they're even an item, so yeah. Overall, Spider-Man from 1977 is a fine film. It's very interesting for the time period, seeing them adapt a character try to do climbing and swinging scenes, but overall, it doesn't really hold up very well. This is more of a curiosity piece than anything, just to see an early adaptation of Spider-Man in live action. So yeah, if you want to watch it, it's free on YouTube. It's only an hour 20 minutes, so go ahead if you want to watch it. And if you're not, then I wouldn't blame you. But yeah, I know I got a lot more TV movies coming up, so stay tuned for more of this. Oh, I almost forgot about this one thing. Throughout the entire film, they keep replaying the same 70s really beat track over and over again, like it's a funk disco beat for some reason. This sounds like something you would dance to, not something to see Spider-Man climb the walls to. It's so funny, and it plays constantly throughout the movie, and I love it. Yeah. That's it for this movie. I will see you next time. Just don't jump off a building like that dude was trying to. He was mind controlled, so don't worry about it. And for those curious, here's what the current tier list looks like. Thank you for watching.